Let's go through the papers in a little bit more detail. And joining me to do that is Alex Petropoulos. Thank you so much, Alex. Good morning.
Good morning, Rosie. It's nice to be back on.
Yeah, it's so nice to chat. Depending on who you are, you may be very excited about what the Chancellor's going to announce on Wednesday. What do you make of the Daily Mail? They're sort of very excited. Are we finally on the brink of a real tax cut?
I think real is doing a lot of heavy lifting in what the Mail is saying. Because, with inflation, our effective tax rate has been going up a lot. All our salaries have been going up and the tax thresholds have stayed in place, which means that we've essentially been giving more and more to the taxman over the years. Our effective taxation is going up. So what we could be looking at is, in fact, only a correction to normal levels. But beyond that, the government's getting a bit of positive press, but they've somehow even managed to bungle that in all this discourse about were they going to cancel lower inheritance tax, will they, won't they? I think what they ended up doing is they ended up taking what should be flat out popular with everyone, lower taxes, and turning it into somehow a debacle yet again that makes them fall flat on their faces and shows them, almost out of touch with the country.
Yeah, apparently the Chancellor didn't rule out a last-minute cut to personal taxes, admitting that they were too high. It says, I want to bring down our tax burden, but quite how that's going to happen or when begs the question. It may be at the spring instead. There's quite a lot of caution at play right now in sort of anticipating too much from what we could expect on Wednesday. The big thing the Cabinet will be talking about today, front page of the Times, Alex, is the Rwanda plan and quite a lot of opposition from his colleagues about this potential Plan B. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think I echo on what you were just saying, which is this is just delay. Pursuing this plan from the beginning has been all about scaring off and all about creating something flashy, something that will get attention, something that will really show people, look, we're doing something. But the nature of something flashy, the nature of something that is, to be honest, quite off-putting, is that it's going to have opposition and it's going to run into delays. And, the consensus is that even going through the more moderate phases of this Plan B of, leaving some international conventions, but not all international conventions, will still leave the plan at the end of the day flat on the table. But so what the government really needs to do is they need to sort of reevaluate and say, how do we actually solve the problem? Illegal immigration, well, there are no legal pathways into the country beyond a few schemes we've set up for Hong Kong and Ukraine. Let's change that. Let's make it sure that we can get good people coming into the country legally. Illegal immigration via boats, let's work with France to help them patrol the channel, to stop boats coming in. The whole Rwanda plan from the outset, all it was generated to do was generate clicks and generate attention and uproar, and it's successfully done that, but that is, at the end of the day, going to be its own downfall.
But it's come at an extremely high price tag for currently the amount of money that's been given to Rwanda for them to receive zero people. There is a strategy or a policy idea inside the Telegraph that says ministers are expected to raise the salary threshold for skilled workers to enter the country to reduce net migration. There always seems to be a bit of confusion, Alex. Do the government want more people here or fewer? The idea here is foreign workers will need a salary of more than £30,000 to come to Britain under plans to tackle immigration. Does that sound like a sensible strategy?
Well, I'm generally pro-immigration. And I think that the government, what explains this sort of, they want immigration, but they don't want immigration, is frankly the fact that if you look at non-EU immigrants and you look at how much they take out of the country and how much they put into the country, they are net contributors, which means that every immigrant who's earning these salaries that comes into the country, they're lowering everyone else's tax bill. So frankly, if we're lowering net migration by raising thresholds, we will essentially have to cut funds from someone else. That will put a burden on the public purse strings, and that burden will have to be hurt somewhere else. So frankly, this comes down to the government saying it wants to do one thing, but in reality, knowing that it's probably best for the country to do the other.
It's really interesting. Let me know what you think about that as well. If you're listening at home, you can text the programme 222, start your message with the word Times. Alex, there's quite a lot of education stories inside the papers, and there's been this report from the Institute for Public Policy Research looking at how Ofsted examines schools. And their conclusion is that one-word Ofsted judgments fuel a harmful hire and fire football manager culture in schools. We know that there are sort of ratings, outstanding, good, requires improvement or inadequate. And the analysis from this report was that it often triggers brutal changes to management, fueling a culture of swift replacement at the top. Do you think the structure is too harsh?
Yeah, I think I do agree with this analysis. I think the structure is too harsh. I think that in the social media times, we've all got to be quite careful with how we word things. And we've all got to be quite careful with how we announce anything, because if anything is too soundbitey, if anything's too clippable, it's going to go viral on social media. And the nature of these one word described as brutal descriptions of needs improvement, inadequate, these are perfectly designed to go viral on Twitter, to generate uproar, but to not actually be reflective of the necessary changes. And so I think
the Ofsted ratings were there before, social media outrage became a thing.
Yes, you're 100% right. That means that probably we need to adapt with the times. Probably before social media, people were maybe less willing to jump on the bandwagon. I think some of the changes that have been suggested, which is, one report for the public, and then one report for the school that's more technical, more detailed, saying this is what you actually need to do to address your concerns, will maybe help and sort of bridge this balance. I think that we really got to be careful about fueling people getting a bit excited and whipped up over things that can, at the end of the day, be reports that are quite technical and based on pretty strict criteria.
An Ofsted spokesperson said, our reports are more than just a one word. We look at all the things that are important to parents, including the quality of education, behaviour, and how safely and well the school is run. Alex, if a school is inadequate, they need to be able to say so.
Yes. And parents should know. But they should also understand that it's a little more nuanced than that. It's not, inadequate carries so much baggage with it. It carries so much, your imagination starts to go wild when you hear these words and you start to say, ooh, inadequate. What could teachers be doing? Why are my children unsafe? And, your mind starts spiraling. At the end of the day, this will be a checklist. This will be certain boxes that haven't been ticked. And these might be boxes that actually will be quite easy for the school to fix in the future. So yes, parents should know, and we should definitely keep an aspect of the report that informs parents, but we should definitely strive to get more nuance within it.
So you're saying that the descriptions need to be more, there need to be more descriptions, basically.
Yes,
better analysis to understand exactly where those maybe inadequacies lie. Talking about language and how carefully people are choosing their words, there's another education story. This is the Policy Exchange think tank that have said a fifth of teachers are censoring their own lessons to avoid causing offence, and that'd be about race, gender, sexuality. That's a problem, isn't it?
Yes and no. I think that we have to be very careful of sort of jumping to conclusions about whether this is censorship and whether this is cancel culture, or whether this is just, frankly, teachers reacting to their students. This report, this investigation was prompted by a teacher who was tragically killed because he showed images of Muhammad. And at the end of the day, we have to be frank with the fact that that wasn't cancel culture, that was radical Islam, right? And so if you want to tackle that problem, you've got to tackle radical Islam. You don't tackle it at the point of saying cancel culture is causing our teachers to be worried what they say. Some teachers will have more Muslim students or different student groups and will be more conscious of what they're saying. And so they're going to be just more conscious of not offending their students. If we want to tackle some of these issues like radical Islam, we've actually got to work with the Muslim communities because they're the ones who are actually affected by it most. The people who are most hard hit by radical Islam are Muslim people because they get all of the negative connotations that are frankly caused by a few bad apples. So rather than sort of pushing this all aside as cancel culture and pushing this all aside as sort of censorship, we really got to be moving to the root cause of the issue and working with these communities to tackle a few bad apples.
Yeah, there will be some concern from, teachers and parents that the classroom should be a space where ideas can be wrestled with.
100%. And, there should definitely be like, pretty much what you said exactly. I don't think we should have sort of this blank check rules of what you can say, what you can't say. I think we should trust teachers to understand what's best with their kids. That at the end, currently there aren't any hard rules that are preventing teachers from saying this, right? So I don't really understand what's really being suggested that will change, because the reason teachers aren't saying this is because clearly they've sensed that their students would be uncomfortable. You need a cultural shift, maybe, to change this, but definitely saying stop censorship, stop cancel culture won't actually change any of these outcomes.
Yeah, won't change it. Someone who very much has not been cancelled, despite other people potentially thinking they have heard enough from him, is Nigel Farage. Some of the papers have got a little bit of a glimpse of what we saw on ITV last night. Nigel Farage in the jungle. Are you going to be tuning in, Alex?
I'm not usually a tuner-inner to I'm a Celebrity, but I think I will this time. Our politics are very much incompatible, but Nigel Farage is undeniably entertaining. And I think that's actually what British politics needs. It needs entertainers. British politics thrives on funny and entertaining people. And the further we can keep those people away from the actual levers of power, the better. Because what you end up with is funny people actually running the government and actually getting into office. So frankly, Farage being an I'm a Celebrity is great news to me. I look at it the exact same way I look at Boris Johnson being a GB News host, right? Fundamentally, incredibly entertaining, incredibly funny people. They have politics that, to say lightly, I don't agree with. But, I think the public desire political entertainment. They desire funny, charming, charismatic people, and we should create a place for them to exist.
So even though you have politically very incompatible ideas with him, is there any part of you that thinks, oh gosh, this could be a bit of a resurgence for his ideas?
No, I really don't think that. I think that this is, all the more opportunity for people to sort of take jabs at him. I think that, to be honest, the nature and the style of that sort of show means that he'll never really be able to defend any of his political views. He's just going to be sort of a punching bag, the way I see it, for a lot of comments, for a lot of just sort of, ooh, Brexit this, ooh, Brexit that. And I'm sort of sitting here but thinking, well, you sort of deserve it, mate. So I'm just going to be watching on gleefully, probably with a bigger smile on my face than I should have.
Well, Alex, you're very welcome to it. Thank you very much for joining me to go through the papers. It was